Good morning to you. Thank you for being here. If you will, go ahead and get a Bible and let's turn to the 50th Psalm. We'll be jumping back in there and looking at this one. Again, this is it's one of those Psalms, and there are quite a few of them that way that were obviously not written to us, to the New Testament church. They were written to the Jew, to the Old Testament followers of God, but they have occasion as well. And this is one of those type psalms. Again, we began looking at it yesterday, and it is discussing the judgment of Israel, and mainly over two issues. Again, they're half-hearted, insincere. That would be the word. Insincere, ritualistic worship and their disobedience to God's commands. And while obviously, again, we are looking, the psalm would have been to them, they were the primary audience. We know that if God judged the people of Israel for those things, then as New Testament believers, God has not changed, and so he's still not satisfied, again, with half-hearted, insincere. Certainly we worship differently. We don't have the sacrificial system, but nonetheless, we worship, and God expects it to be, again, genuine, and He expects us to obey His law. And so if He judged the Israelites for that, then it stands to reason that you and I are going to be held to the same type standard. So we're picking up in verse 7 as God begins to talk about this issue, again, particularly of insincere, habitual, ritualistic worship. And I think, to be honest, I think we all know how easy it can be to fall into that pattern where we worship out of routine more than really our heart be in it, and that isn't pleasing to God. And so his first accusation against the people of Israel, again, is his displeasure with their worship. They're still offering the sacrifices. They're still going to the tabernacle, but it's not. Again, there's no real cause. You know, their grandfather did it, their father did it, now they did it. It's what we did last week, so we'll do it again this week. It was just again just a walkthrough. It really wasn't any kind of worship, and so God is going to judge them. O my people, and I will speak, O Israel, and I will testify against thee. I am God, even thy God. And so before he moves into actually the judgment, he qualifies himself as having the right to judge. And again, he is God. He is Elohim, the all-powerful God is what that name means. And he is their God. He is their personal God, even thy God, he says. And so he has been the personal God of Israel. He chose them. He made a covenant with them. He brought them out of their bondage and brought them into a promised land. And so he says, I have a right to judge you. And again, if he had a right to judge Israel, certainly he has a right to judge the New Testament church as well, as we have been bought with a price. He sent his son to die for us. And so he goes on and begins to tell him what his judgment is. I will not reprove thee for thy sacrifices or thy burnt offerings to have been continually before me. And so the Lord, he wants the people to understand what he is so upset about. He is approving, let's see if I can word this correctly, he approves of their of the worship itself. He wasn't judging them It wasn't that they were offering that they were doing it wrong. If you've read the Old Testament, you know that there is a lengthy list of how they were to worship and the sacrifices they're to make and when they're to make them and where they're to make them. I mean, and they were doing that right. They were following the law, how to offer. The problem was, if you continue to read, he says, "I will take no bullock out of thy house, nor he goats out of thy folds, for every beast of the forest is mine, and the cattle upon 1,000 hills. I know all the fowls of the mountains, and the wild beasts of the field are mine. If I were hungry, I would not tell thee, for the world is mine, and the fullness thereof. Will I eat the flesh of bulls, or drink the blood of goats?" And so again, they are following the ritual. They are following the law, again, as far as what to offer and how to offer. What God is angry about is their attitude as they make those offerings. Again, I think, I think of telling, if you ever told one child to apologize to another one, and they'll go, "I'm sorry." They did what you told them to do, but they did it with a bad, the wrong attitude. And so God is telling them that He's not accepting their sacrifice. "I'll take no bullock out of your house or he goats." And he says, "I'm not accepting your sacrifice because your attitude is wrong. You're going about it in the wrong way." And so there's a valuable lesson there for us today. We can go to all the church services. We can carry our Bible. We can sing the songs. We can give in the offering plate. We can, we can even sing or teach ourselves. We can go through those motions. But if we're only going through the motions, God says that that's not acceptable. And so that's a staunch warning, again, I think, for the New Testament church as well, not just the Israelites, that it's not enough just to go through the motions to show up at church. You can have, perfect attendance and hold all the offices, but God's saying it's our attitude that actually that He is looking at and that He is measuring. In verse 14, he says, "Offer unto God thanksgiving and pay thy vows unto the Most High." And so, again, he's already said, if I was hungry, I wouldn't tell you. He says, I own, why would I take no bullock out of your fields? Verse 10, he says, "For every beast is mine, the cattle upon 1,000 hills. And all the fowls and the wild beasts, they're mine." I don't need your offering, God says. It's not that I want the steak. It's about your thanksgiving. Lord, it's to offer unto God thanksgiving. And so it's not that they were giving God something He needs. God doesn't need us to attend church. God doesn't need us to give an offering. God doesn't need us to sing a song, teach a lesson. Worship is about our relationship with God. He created us for that relationship, and we to simply, this may be a poor analogy, but we often, I think, are guilty of worshiping much like we pay taxes. We pay our taxes because we have to, because that's the law. And not because we're in love with our government, because we're pleased with our government. Well, many people go to church and go through the motions the same way, just because, again, it's what's expected of them, it's what they've always done. But God wants us to worship, as He says here in this verse. He says, "Offer unto God thanksgiving." He wants us to come to Him in the right attitude and pay thy vows unto the Most High. What he's saying when he says pay your vows, again, he's not talking about taking up an offering. He's talking about keeping our word. He was saying to the Israelites, you keep your covenant. You agreed to follow my commandments. You agreed to to be obedient to my word. And he says, you're not doing that. And so he says, you're going through the motions. Yeah, you're bringing the sacrifices to the temple, but you are not being obedient to my word. Outside of that, you're not approaching me with the right attitude and the right frame of mind. And so in verse 15, he says, and call upon me in the day of trouble, I will deliver thee, and thou shalt glorify me. He says, and I think there's a logical flip side of that. He says, if you will do those things, if you will worship me correctly, if you will be obedient, then you can call on me in the day of trouble and I'll deliver you. And I think the logical flip side of that statement is, if you don't worship me correctly, if you're not obedient to me, then don't expect me to rush in and help you. And so as we wrap up this section, again, it was obviously directed to the Israelites as it talks about the sacrifice of bullocks and goats. And we don't do that today in the New Testament. But again, the issue is not the bullocks or the goats. The issue is the attitude. The issue is the heart. And so I said yesterday it wasn't a very Christmassy text, but I'm going to try my best to make this one a little Christmassy and say, just like at Christmas, that what is our attitude as we celebrate the birth of Christ this week? What is our attitude? Is our heart focused on worshiping Him? Are we really celebrating Jesus, or is it just an excuse to get together with our family and exchange presents? And so I think God's heart breaks when He says here in this verse 15 that if you'll do those things, you glorify me. We are created to give Him glory. That is our purpose, and instead we have allowed our worship to become ritualistic, habitual. It's become more about form. It's become more about order of service. It's become again a ritual, and our heart's not really in it. I can prove that to you in one simple example. Let a worship service go long. Let it go over the time we think it should last, and people start getting, all bent out of shape. If we were truly worshiping God, we wouldn't care how long it took. We wouldn't care how long we were there. Again, one of my other examples that I've used before is, we're going to have a worship service in this building, and in this building over here, we're going to have a covered dish dinner. You tell me which building needs more chairs. Again, we have to be careful that, again, God doesn't just automatically bless because we gather. He looks, as the Bible tells us, at the inside. He looks at the heart. And so this morning, as we approach Christmas, it's not just Christmas, but all year round, my challenge here is that, again, that we would worship from the heart and be obedient, that we would follow His word and we worship Him from the heart. All right, I hope you'll think about that today.